Tank Abbott is an American fighter associated with the no-rules fights of the early days of MMA, which at that time were known as Vale Tudo. It was in those early UFC tournaments that the fighter David Lee, better known as Tank, began his career in mixed martial arts. From the very beginning, he described his style as street fighting, the kind commonly seen in bars and on the streets. Abbott never had the best record in the UFC. In fact, if we judged him purely by results, he could be considered a lower mid-level fighter, with 8 wins and 10 losses. However, despite those numbers, his exotic way of fighting and his iron-hard personality turned him into a true legend of the UFC, the man who made people watch no-rules fights in the 1990s. This monster in the ring not only fought spectacularly but always said exactly what he thought, spoke crudely, and that attitude attracted fans and, of course, tournament organizers. David Lee began wrestling at the age of 9 and continued training throughout his school years. He was considered a solid freestyle wrestler and even won several tournaments in his youth. During his university days, Tank stood out for his remarkable physical strength. His weightlifting numbers were extraordinary, and his bench press far exceeded that of amateur bodybuilders of the time. However, his natural strength was not his only defining trait, as another factor set him apart from other athletes: his constant street fights. These brawls made him a feared fighter among those who knew him, and he reportedly fought more than 200 times in street encounters. That experience played a crucial role in his performances inside the octagon. Beyond street fighting, he was also a competitive wrestler, a member of the United States Junior Athletic League, and was selected as an All-American during his student years. He also boxed under trainer No Cruz, who had trained world boxing champion Carlos Palomino. David attempted to enter the UFC more than once, even after UFC 3, inspired by the performance of Kimo Leopoldo. At that time, however, the Gracie family had strong influence over fighter selection and opposed the participation of fighters with amateur wrestling backgrounds, as they did not want to risk their dominance against physically similar but technically different styles. After Royce Gracie left the UFC, Tank, along with other fighters, finally managed to enter the world of no-rules fighting. His future manager, David Thomas, reached an agreement with UFC management, highlighting that Tank had knocked out 4 fighters in his most recent bouts. Organizers compared him to a Clint Eastwood movie character and gave him the nickname Tank. Thus, David Lee, now known as Tank Abbott, made a brilliant and memorable UFC debut on July 14, 1995 at UFC 6. In a pre-tournament interview, he immediately displayed his bold and provocative personality, openly mocking mixed martial arts and explaining how fights should be promoted, famously stating, "My name is Tank, and I'm going to be the most athletic person ever to step into the octagon, and with my experience, I will definitely become the champion of UFC 6. His first opponent was Hawaiian Kapalua fighter John Machua, who weighed 400 pounds, and for both men it was their first MMA fight. The bout lasted only 18 seconds, as both fighters rushed at each other immediately, Tank landing fast, heavy hooks and knocking Machua out with a single punch, then mocking his convulsions and cementing his reputation as a ruthless and defiant fighter. He advanced to the semifinals, where he entered the octagon to a roaring crowd and faced the largest American fighter in the tournament, Paul Verhoeven, known as the Polar Bear, who had won his quarterfinal match with a brutal elbow strike. Tank defeated Verhoeven in just 2 minutes after delivering a savage beating, finishing him with a knee to the face while pressing his full body weight down and laughing at the crowd. He then advanced to the final, where he was defeated by Russian fighter Oleg Taktarov via submission. After the fight, Tank blamed his lack of cardio for the loss and publicly challenged the Gracie family, stating that he would have liked to see them try their techniques against him. In another fight, he attempted to throw Taekwondo fighter Cal Worsham out of the octagon before finishing him with relentless punches to the face. Aside from a quick victory over Brazilian Hugo Duarte, who was famous for a beach fight with Rickson Gracie, Tank began losing consistently against higher-level opponents. He fought a brutal war against fellow powerhouse Scott Ferrazzo, who defeated him, and years later in 2011, both long retired, they had a violent backyard rematch that ended in a draw after 20 minutes of exhausting brawling. From that point on, losses outnumbered victories against opponents who matched his strength but surpassed him in technique or speed, including defeats to Vitor Belfort, Maurice Smith, Pedro Rizzo, and many other elite fighters of that era. Even so, every fight involving Tank Abbott was guaranteed to be a war. He also maintained a bitter rivalry with former UFC champion Tito Ortiz, whom he accused of stealing money and chasing fame, rather than being a true fighter. Late in his career, he faced Kimbo Slice, the so-called king of street fighting, and was knocked out in just over a minute. In 2015, during the peak popularity of former UFC champion Ronda Rousey, Tank even challenged her publicly, claiming that if she beat him he would pay her $100,000, but if he won she would have to make him a sandwich. Today, retired, older, and somewhat calmer, Tank Abbott still maintains his defiant attitude and speaks his mind without fear of being politically incorrect. Ultimately, he remains a genuine street fighter turned professional, remembered as one of the pioneers of the UFC, one of the men who made fans fall in love with no-rules fighting and Vale Tudo, and as one of the toughest, most violent, and most ruthless fighters ever to step into the octagon, a true beast of the ring.